Mike Follett, CEO of Lumen Research, and the guy who's figured out what everyone else in Adland is missing. Attention. Not the fluffy kind your therapist tells you to give, but the kind that actually makes ads work. Today on the ADOTAT Show, we're cutting through the usual marketing BS and getting into why your million-dollar campaigns are getting ghosted. Eye tracking? Yep, he's got that too. So stick around. This is going to make you rethink every ad you've ever run.
Deserve to win when it matters most. Facing multi-billion-dollar bet the company litigation? No problem. That's why we're here. Troutman, Amin, LLP is a true legal powerhouse.
ADOTAT Show. I'm your host, Pesach Lattin. Today we've got Mike Follett, the CEO of Lumen Research, a guy who's turning attention to the most valuable metric in advertising. Mike's using eye tracking tech to prove that if no one is paying attention, your ads just aren't working. Stick around, it's going to be a good one. Mike, how are you really? Not the LinkedIn crushing it version, but I've been staring at Excel sheets and ad metrics for 12 hours straight.
I am okay. I'm enjoying it, man. It's this is a passion for me. So it's all attention, all day, every hour, every minute, and I like it that way.
Right, seriously, how often do you find yourself zoning out in the middle of a meeting about attention metrics? Irony at its finest, right?
Yeah, well, I zone out of any meeting pretty much as soon as the people stop talking about attention metrics. Like I say, slightly obsessive. So I have enjoyed every minute of this so far. I'm sorry to disappoint you. I'm just high on attention.
So what did you have for breakfast today? Data, coffee, or just the sweet satisfaction of knowing you're light years ahead of everyone else in the industry?
Well, that's very kind of you to say. It's a strange feeling. We're an overnight success that's taken 11 years to get noticed, and certainly in the UK, people have been talking about attention for 5 or 6 years, and we have been at the forefront of that. It's very reassuring and sort of, really rewarding to think that we started that. Also in Australia, people have been talking about attention a lot thanks to the work of Karen Nelson Field and people like that. And it's quite cool just to see that things are now catching on in the States as well. It's great to think that we actually started something.
All right, let's get into it. Your new research with Havas and Brand Metrics analyzed 9,000 brand lift studies and showed that attention, not just viewability, correlates with brand outcomes like awareness and purchase intent. Were you surprised, or were you sitting there finally like, someone gets it?
Yeah, well, this is something that we've known for many years from lots of sort of mini tests that we've done. It's something that correlates with all the work that we know about how attention links to outcomes metrics like clicks and conversions. So it didn't come as a surprise, but it did come as sort of slightly gratifying to find out that the relationship between what we predict people are looking at and what people actually remember is so strong. So it wasn't a surprise, but it was really reassuring that our assumptions were right.
9,000 brand lift studies. Are you guys doing science, or is this just a big flex?
No, it's proper numbers. It's 9,089 studies that we analysed, but more importantly, 1.8 million people. So it's by far the largest attention and brand lift outcomes data set ever analysed. It's big data allows you to have big confidence in the results. We often find that we're now analysing one campaign versus another, or a group of 10 versus another group of 10, and that's good. The data is robust, but suddenly you can have an awful lot more confidence when you're talking in the hundreds of thousands and millions of responses. And you can actually learn things that you might not have been able to see on the micro level when you expand to the macro level. When you can see that the noise in the data sort of is the noise just sort of, I can't think of the word, but it evaporates suddenly because and then the story sort of emerges from the consensus.
Okay, so one of the things I found most interesting was that aggregate attention is what really moves the needle. Multiple short exposures rather than one long one. Are you saying that ads are like a bad relationship? It's not the long talks that matter, but there's repeated little moments?
Well, that's one way of putting it, I'm sure. I mean, the thing is, to get anyone to remember anything, they have to spend a significant amount of time. You need 5 or 10 seconds to really lodge a memory in people's mind. But what we found is you didn't need to have a massive great blast of 5 or 10 seconds all at once. What you could do is add up lots of little exposures, just like you said. And I think that what this sort of points to is a sort of the power of top of mind salience, of just being reminded about a brand. You don't necessarily need, each exposure doesn't need to be really, really engaging or attentive. You just need to have lots of good enough things that add up. And this may be because of the sort of metrics that, the outcomes metrics that we're looking at. I mean, perhaps when it comes, other data that we found says that when it comes to actually getting people to purchase things, sometimes big chunks of data are exactly what you need. Or if you want to get people to change their minds about brands, sometimes you really do need to sit people down and tell them a story or give them an argument. It seems that cognition requires quite a lot of attention, whereas recognition or recognition might just need a bunch of little slivers of attention.
Right. So using my really horrible metaphor, is this more like Tinder or Match.com?
I think probably when you're just getting people to try and remember a brand and build awareness and build that mental availability that people like Andrew Ehrenberg used to talk about, you can get away with sort of Tinder-style swipes. And when you want to really convince someone of something, then you'll need a deeper engagement. And as advertisers, we have to those two strategies, like you say, Tinder versus Match.com, we, as advertisers, are very interested in ourselves. And so we think that other people are as interested as we are. We think that they want to read the whole Match.com profile and know exactly if we like dogs or cats. Whereas in reality, most people are not as excited or engaged with advertising as we are. Most people couldn't give a monkeys. And in actual fact, it really is only the top of mind stuff that they won't invest lots of their time and attention into ads. So really, the best we can hope is a quick glance and a quick swipe.
So you also found attention drives things like preference and purchase intent more than simple viewability. Should we be laughing at all the brands that are obsessing over viewability like it's some sort of golden ticket?
Viewability's a good.
I have no idea what that means. It's table stakes? Oh.
The dues you have to pay it and pay to get into the game. So that is the start. But really, all that viewability is it tells you about the opportunity to see things, the OTS. What it doesn't tell you about is the S. Did anyone see it? And there's a big difference between the opportunity to see things and actually seeing them. So I think viewability and viewable time are really, really valuable metrics to include in your analysis, but they're sort of fodder for these attention algorithms. We make use of the viewability data to get to what we really care about, which is an attention prediction. And it's the attention that matters.
This is probably not just a banner problem. What happens when we start talking about other media like video or CTV? Does the whole more attention means better results still hold, or do the rules change?
Settle for dusty old school TV ads when you could be turning heads with Origin. Imagine zero-code solutions that make setting up your CTV campaigns faster than a double espresso shot. Origin brings dynamic, captivating ads in the living room and outside the home. With ad formats designed to grab eyeballs and stop thumbs from scrolling, Origin isn't just about reach, it's about results. Like a jaw-dropping 883% lift in viewer attention. Don't just get noticed, get remembered. Visit originmedia.tv and start your ad revolution today.
Well, this research was just looking at banner advertising and display advertising, but we're about to release a whole load of data about video as well. Spoiler alert, attention matters there too. More time equals better results, although, as I said, with diminishing returns over time. Attention is important, and in all use cases. And in actual fact, I think probably the better way of thinking about it is rather than thinking about attention to advertising, what we should really think about attention to anything, and then attention to advertising is a subset of that. And if you think of it from that perspective, about how we engage with things of life in general, we all know that we attend to the things that matter to us. And it could be attend to your friends or to your family, or when you're with your family, they're constantly telling you, rightly so, attend to me, look at me, put that phone down, stop looking at Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever it is. Because people know that when you are attending to them, when you are concentrating on them, that matters. And when you're in a distracted point of view, you are not valuing the other person. Now that's something about life in general. We know that's true about our whole existence. Attention to advertising is just a subset of that. Looking at things is important. Looking at things for longer is also important in terms of engaging people as a signal that people are engaged or engaging their brain about. So it stands to reason that attention is valuable in all environments, and more attention is valuable irrespective of the medium.
So looking forward, are attention metrics going to be a new currency that media buyers can't ignore? Or are we going to need a whole decade more to understand this?
Well, we're on the road to getting some definitions that we can all agree about what we mean by attention. The IAB has kicked off a program with the great Angie Ng, the helm, and that's good because I think it's going to help advertisers understand what we mean. What are we talking about when we talk about attention?
Right.
And that's a good start. Just getting the definitions right is important. For us, when we talk about attention, we mean human attention, real human beings engaging with stuff. And we also mean that the data and the models that we're talking about attention come from human data. Can't just be, a series of assumptions or, guesses. You have to have some real human data behind it. So that sort of stuff, I think, is going to be very definitely defined and agreed by the industry. But once you've done that, I'm not sure that automatically means just because you have standards doesn't mean you necessarily have a currency.
Right.
And the currency thing is difficult because lots of media can get the job of advertising done, completed, in different levels of attention. So you can, if we one of the things that we've done with Havas and brand metrics is shown that if all you want to do is get people to remember a brand, then perhaps you only need 1 second or 2 seconds of attention to do that. If, on the other hand, you want people to put it on the sort of consideration set or even to drive intention purchase, perhaps you need 5 seconds or 10 seconds. Similarly, different brands are better or worse at converting attention time into cognition and desire. You only have to show me a glimpse of the golden arches, and because I love McDonald's, I will start to salivate and think, I have to go and get myself a burger. Whereas other brands might need 5 or 6 seconds of attention for me to start giving the same sort of response. So I don't know if it's going to be fair for media owners to be judged on attentive seconds, or for media buyers just to go and buy me, 1 or 2 seconds of attention, or 5 or 6 or whatever, and 5 or 6 being worth half as much as 10 or 12 seconds. I don't think it works like that, and I don't think that we should try and force it to work like that.
I want to talk a little bit about attention decay. It seems that we have the attention span of a goldfish, and yet marketers still think people are glued to their screens. Are we fooling ourselves here, or is there a way to fight this slow death of focus?
It's a really interesting question that is as much about the ethics of attention as about the sort of mechanics of it or economics of attention. So people often tell me that attention spans are getting shorter. I, for the life of me, don't know what an attention span is. I think it's a weird concept that has very limited scientific validity. And I don't think it's even true. Movies are getting longer. Series, that we binge watch are people regularly tell me that they spend 4, 5, 6 hours watching the same show right from start to finish. So in that sense, But they're not watching necessarily the show by itself. They have a second screen on. They're
There's social media.
Sometimes people do. I mean, I know I get into trouble with my wife when I'm watching TV and also flicking through social media. She tells me, just concentrate on something. So I know I do it myself. Perhaps you do it. Perhaps your listeners do. But this idea that attention is being broken up into little bits, I just don't know if it's true. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. We feel it's true. We feel that we used to be able to concentrate on stuff, and now we're much more distracted. I don't think there's any evidence, but the feels. Even if it is true that our attention is fracturing, like I say, don't believe it is, but still, so what? Just as advertisers, we have to play the cards that are dealt us. And so if people are only prepared to glance at ads where previously they would stop and stare at them, then smart advertisers will develop different types of ads that appeal to that. I mean, you might have noticed this in TV advertising. You watch reels of the Carson show or something from the 60s or 70s, and many of the ads that interrupted that show were 60 seconds long or 90 seconds long. I can remember when I started my career at DDB, we were all asked what was our favourite Bill Bernbach ad. And we spent an afternoon just watching hundreds of Bill Bernbach ads. And these were like 1, 2, 3 minute ads, because that's what happened in the 60s and 70s. You'd never get that now on terrestrial TV. In actual fact, we've gone from 60 down to 30, down to 15 in some cases, or more than that. You can be creative in 15 seconds. You can be creative in 30 seconds. You just cut your time cloth to suit your attention budget.
So how do brands tell their story? Is it like asking a novelist to write a haiku?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good way of thinking about it. You can write, a good haiku is better than a bad long novel. Basho is a greater writer than Jeffrey Archer, but Basho's stuff is you can have his complete works on 3 sides of 4 paper. Yeah, you can get lots done with sort of miniature messages. And the second thing is perhaps we have got the optics wrong here. It's not how can a brand get my message across. It's what are people willing to hear from my brand. We have to remember that as advertisers, we're not in charge of people's attention. We have to earn people's attention. We have to be worth their time. And we can't demand it because, we can lead the horse to water, but we can't make them drink if it comes to that. So it's not that you can't be amazingly creative and persuasive in a short amount of time. It's not that you can't sort of miniaturize your stories so that they work in that time. But it's also trying to flip the perspective to work out how do I tell a story that's interesting enough for people to want to hear more.
Right.
Which is not often a challenge that you
think that's the key for the bite-sized clips is to get people to learn more? Like if I see the logo over and over again, I want to search for it.
Yes. I suppose what I'm saying is that there might be 2 different and complementary strategies.
Right.
One is to treat most digital media as a poster, as a billboard.
Right.
Listen.
So why aren't we just flashing up the logo?
Well, I often think that's a pretty good. Apple does a very good job of making sure that their ads are amazingly swift to engage with, and you unmistakably from Apple. I think if you were to realise that most digital media have only got a couple of seconds of attention, you design different ads. So that's one strategy to go down, which is to go with the flow, go with the grain of people's attention pattern. But the other thing is to design something so entertaining and so interesting that people want to give you their attention. Now, that's what's particularly interesting about
content.
That. Well, I suppose it's content. It's certainly entertainment, and it's voluntary. Instead of assuming that you're interrupting people's lives and they have to stop and stare, because they don't, you try and earn their attention. Now, what's interesting, Pesach, is English is a language where this metaphor of giving and receiving and paying, earning attention is built into the words that we use. Perhaps we should just really take the sort of wisdom of language seriously. As creatives, as advertisers, what are we going to do to earn people's attention so that it's worth their while worth their time to be entertained by us or to be informed by us. We don't rent people's eyeballs. They have no obligation to look at our stuff. Instead of forcing people to engage with our stuff, we should think about how we can seduce them into looking at stuff and engaging.
Isn't that what context is about? I say context is king. Ads on a high-quality news site versus ads on TikTok, dance videos. Am I crazy to think that where you see the ad actually matters?
So I think that's a different point to the creative point about earning attention, but it's an important different point. Yes, I think context, is tremendously important. Where you see stuff really does matter. And again, I think there's a sort of physiological reason for that. When you're engaged with the content, you tend to scroll more slowly, or you're because you don't want to miss the video content. You're less likely to take your eyes away from the interruptive advertising that goes with it. So because you're engaged with the content, the higher quality of the content, the more attention goes to it, the less likely you're going to be looking away from the screen, and the more likely you're going to be looking at the accompanying ads. So that's it.
Should brands stop throwing all their money at social media then, since not all eyeballs are created equal?
Well, this is the interesting thing about what counts as quality content. What counts as quality content to you might be very different from what counts as quality content to someone else. This is the really interesting thing, that I myself don't get a lot of value out of social media. It's not very interesting to me. And so for me, whenever I am on social media, I sort of flick through it at great speed. But I know I've got friends who are glued to it. And because they're super, super engaged with their own social media feeds, so I imagine they'd also be
I watch
really
cooking videos.
Well, there you go. Now, for me, you'd be unsurprised that an Englishman doesn't care much about cooking.
I learned when I was a kid. I learned you go to bathroom in London and you eat in Paris. That's what they used to say.
Yeah. So cooking videos for me, you know what? Not so interesting. Might not spend a lot of time deeply engaged with that stuff, and therefore the accompanying videos perhaps less interesting to me. However, for you, this is high quality content. And that's where we have to also have a real think about the nature, the sort of multifariousness of the internet, that what counts as quality differs by different people.
So some people, cat videos is quality.
Exactly. Now, educated people like you and me, perhaps I say it, dog owners, might look down on cat videos, but some people really love them. And this is where I think you get into the sort of ethics of attention, here about what's worth looking at. Any phenomenon that involves choice, looking at one thing and not looking at another, engaging with this and not engaging with that, also presupposes a morality. What's worth looking at? And as humans, we find it very difficult to just leave that by the side. We feel obliged to engage with that and apply some sort of ethical hierarchy to those things. Educated people like you and me and your listeners probably bemoan the fact that people spend all their time on social media and they are not spending time listening to operas or engaging with high quality journalism. We think that one thing is better than the other, but that's just our opinion, man. Other people have a different set of values, and so engage in a different set of ways. And we, I think, as a society, as the sort of educated elite of the societies, can sometimes find that really quite challenging. That other people don't value the things that we value.
Hey, moving on, let's talk a little bit about programmatic. It's taken over like some rogue AI, spitting out ads with the precision of a fire hose. Is this the savior of the ad world, or are we just all feeding a monster that has gotten out of control?
I definitely think this attention stuff can save programmatic. Because I think, or is part of the posse that is about to save programmatic.
I think you've also said that programmatic can lower attention rates due to clutter.
I think clutter definitely lowers attention rates. If you have 6 ads on the page all firing at the same time, that doesn't mean you get 6 times the attention. It means you get 1/6 the attention. People can't see the wood for the trees. But that you can get cluttered websites bought on a direct IO just as much as programmatic. Programmatic is a means to buying this stuff. It doesn't necessarily require cluttered advertising. In actual fact, the attention data could help you as a programmatic buyer identify those sites where people have fewer ads, but each ad gets better attention. It could funnel money towards those cleaner websites which are less sort of an assault on the eyeballs, where people have the content and perhaps one ad and then a bit more content and then another ad, and that programmatic algorithms can use to direct investment. Attention is really, really valuable as an indicator of where the good stuff is, but it has this perhaps side benefit that it helps justify buying ads on websites with less ad yield that are more enjoyable to engage with, and are often produced by higher quality news outfits and things like that.
So are Adtech platforms actually helping the situation, or are they just complicating things more?
At the moment, they're certainly complicating things and making it worse, because there's this murky middle of DSPs talking to exchanges, talking to SSPs, talking. You know what? It's a mess.
Do you think it should be a lot simpler?
It could be, absolutely, and with better data signals and better alignment about what we're trying to buy, it will get much simpler. This is why I think attention data is part of the solution here, because it helps you cut through all the noise. It's a sort of a beacon-style signal that says, here is the good stuff. But it's part of it, because attention on its own isn't the full story. What you need to do is link the attention data to the cost data, working out how much the cost of your buy. There's no point in buying 3 times the attention if you're spending 10 times the dollars on it. That's not a good deal. And then when you've worked out not just the volume of attention you're getting and the cost of attention, then you have to work really hard to link it to the outcomes metrics, the clicks and the conversions, or the lift in brand lift study metrics, or with Amazon linking to sales in store or sales online. That's the really holy grail, where you can combine the metrics that really matter, attention and outcomes, with the programmatic pipes. And you put those two things together, and I think the programmatic industry has a really strong future.
So how do we balance that with the need for scale then?
Well, there are a lot of good stuff out there. You can use this data to buy the good stuff, and there's tons of good websites and tons of good ads out there. But there is still an awful lot of rubbish, an awful lot of trash out there. Perhaps
do you see in 5 years this be cleaned up?
I don't think it'll be. I hope so, absolutely. But what that will mean is that a lot of the trash gets swept away, and that does mean that there will be fewer ads to buy, and that will probably mean that the CPMs on those ads, the cost of those ads, goes up. And you go, oh my God, this data will just, like you say, it'll reduce reach. It'll reduce the. But you know what, Pesach? It's not real reach anyway. We're just lying to ourselves at the moment. A load of this trash advertising might be viewable, might tick a box on a spreadsheet saying that this counts as an ad. But if no one looks at your ad, it isn't really an ad. It doesn't really work. This is what's really important to realize, that in actual fact, reach is limited already. It's just we don't know it.
It's just fake reach.
Exactly. So the use of the attention data isn't going to necessarily change the way in which which ads are good and which ads are bad. It just will know which ones are good and which ones are bad. Light here is the greatest disinfectant.
So one of the things I find most interesting is the possibility of real-time optimization. It sounds like a dream, but is this the kind of dream where we wake up and realize we've been trying to fly, but we're still stuck on the ground? Are we really close to optimizing ads in real time based on attention, or is this just purely sci-fi?
Well, we are already doing an awful lot of real-time optimization through places like the Amazon DSP or through the trade desk, where you can, you optimize the bidding on the basis of whether, I think this ad is going to get 1 second or 2 seconds or 3 seconds of attention. You can already do that, and that's what many of our customers are doing in North America and Europe and Asia Pacific. So in that sense, optimizing the media buying, the future is here. It's just not evenly distributed. But I think what you might be talking about isn't just about the media optimization, but is also about the creative optimization. Making sure that the right ads are served to the right person in the right way. I mean, you're AI obsessive, And you've got to believe that linking attention data to generative AI would allow you to create bespoke, sort of instantaneous ads that are exactly right for a particular environment or a particular audience in real time. And using the attention data that we've got from all our research and panels as a sort of input more into
I even see like the possibility that, you have a 30-second ad going, and 10 seconds in, they change the ad based on your attention. I mean, if you're not paying attention to it, they're going to have to get your attention at that point, or it's going to be wasted.
Exactly. Hence,
like, hey, you're not paying attention to me. Look,
we'll throw a kitten in there, after 5 seconds. I mean, David Ogilvy once said, though, of course, his writing partner said, if all you want is someone to look at your ad, that's easy. Just put a gorilla in a jockstrap. But that only works for one brand. You can't have it in every brand. So no, I think I am I think probably a bit more skeptical than you about the actual reality of real-time creative optimization through generative AI. Or perhaps not. I mean, these are hopeful dreams. I don't think you're making a prediction there, but it would be nice to think it could happen. And you know what? I think it could, but to make it happen, you need to have lots and lots of really high-quality input data. The problem about AI, and especially with generative AI, there is it sort of feeds on itself. You have to put in stuff, but increasingly the AIs can suffer from this sort of recursive loop where the algorithms feed off the productions of previous algorithms. What you need to have is a kernel of truth, or the grit around which the pearl can form. And I think that human attention data, especially eye tracking based data, could provide exactly that sort of grit around which the sort of creative optimization pearl could form in future years. We're not there yet, but it might happen.
Is that the one piece of data you wish you could get in real time?
Well, from all our data collection and our panels, we are already collecting that data, trying to understand. Time. But we collect data from tens of thousands of people around the world a week, new, fresh data about what they're noticing and what they're ignoring. And initially we were using that data just to build predictive models of the ad units that they see, the boxes on the screen. But we also have data about how people engage about what's inside those boxes, the videos and the ads and the designs and the colors. And we're now using that as the basis of the next generation of Lumen models, which will take into account creative. We're right at the start of that journey. It's a very, very big ask, and our AI teams are in the process of collecting the data and mapping it out. So it's not something that I can promise I'll come back on your show next year with the product. It's a long-term task, but it's really valuable data. And this, I think, if we can't make it work with this data, I don't think we can make it work at all.
Do you think we'll ever shake the obsession with impression, or is that like trying to get people to quit coffee?
Well, I think we have to realize, it's not the impressions you buy that matter, it's the impression you make.
Right.
And so if you think about the role of advertising as getting, adverting, advertare, to turn towards, to gain attention and then to deliver a message, then you need to buy, the opportunity to be seen, the impression, the OT, the potential there. That's the first step. But then you need to go beyond that to look at the actuality. Sure, I bought an impression. Sure, it was viewable, and therefore it was potentially to be seen. Yeah, that's a good start. That's a necessary piece of data. But what's really important is to work out, did anyone look? So in that sense, I don't think we're going to stop counting impressions. I don't think we should stop counting impressions. But we should also start thinking about, like I say, not just the impressions we buy, but the impression we make.
So let's talk about some personal stuff. Let's kick off with something light. If you were stuck on a desert island and could only bring 5 people, who is making the cut? And let's first of all assume the Wi-Fi is terrible, so they need to be useful and interesting.
Well,
is there anyone you work with that you won't invite?
No. But this is the interesting thing. Startup or scale up now, you need an amazing team,
right,
of different people with different perspectives. And I spend more time with the guys at work than I do with my wife, which is, I suppose, quite sad. And so if I can't
once you said it out loud, right?
Yeah. When I'd very much like my wife to be on this team, but I wouldn't want to inflict such a misery on her. I would probably choose the people that I started Lumen with. Tanwa Edu, who runs our consulting team. She is this sort of amazing sort of motherly figure that looks after everyone. Donia Badu is our head of partnerships. She has this sort of problem-solving mentality. Navid Haji Mirza, who's the guy who invented the eye tracking, the funds of it, is this sort of natural engineer who you can sort of bodge together solutions to any problems.
You really think a bunch of data scientists could start a fire with 2 coconuts?
Well, you haven't met Donia and Donia and Tanwa. They're not data scientists, and they're the most practical people I know. And Navid's pretty good. I think the person I'd also take as well is my other co-founder, Ezra Pierce. He's a scion of the Pierce family from Boston, who produced C.S. Pierce, the philosopher. And if you think, well, he's got to be pretty esoteric. But Ez, aside from being, the cleverest man I know, is also a accomplished rock climber and ballet dancer. And I reckon he'd be pretty good at getting to the top of a coconut tree. And
you said belly dancer?
I know. The man is a Renaissance man. He's like Alberti's perfect courtier. He can actually, I think Alberti did say this, that the perfect gentleman should be able to sing and dance and do all these things, and then finally jump over another grown man from a standing start. So that's what it takes to be a gentleman, and Ezra Pierce can certainly do that.
So now that we've sorted out your island crew, let's talk about your superpowers. If you could pick any superpower, what would it be? And no cheating with perfect data analysis. Think bigger.
I would just like to be able to turn off my mind sometimes.
That's not a superpower. It's called drinking.
I at the moment, what I really want is just the amazing ability to think about something and then stop thinking about it and go to sleep. And that,
I don't know how to ask my next question then. Would you use your power for good? Yeah. I mean,
I just like to, like you say, what I crave is oblivion. And
is medical marijuana legal there yet?
That could help, I think. I mean, my superpowers are actually
a lot of people in the Adtech industry,
ordinary things.
Now, a lot of people in the Adtech industry here vape and smoke. I've noticed that at conventions. I think it's the stress.
Well, exactly.
And we're legal. It's legal like in 38 states now. So,
you see, for me, Pesach, it is stressful running a company, growing a company, hiring people, looking after them. I do find that stressful. But it's not the stress that I think. It's just the sort of obsessional, addictive personality I have to thinking endlessly about attention. And I think it can be dangerous.
I'm sure your wife loves it.
God,
you're like, look at me all the time.
The first couple of years, she would put up with it, and now we just have a moratorium, not allowed to talk about.
You're not allowed to just point at things outside the window while you're driving.
Can't do that. Certainly can't do that. We can't even talk about attention theory or metaphors of attention or implications. So we have in many ways, my wife Lisa is the closest thing I will get to a superpower, which is that she just she refuses to engage with me, bollocksing on about
she's learned to ignore you.
Exactly. It turns out ignorance is the corollary of attention, and for Lise, definitely ignorance of attention is Liz.
So who's been your Yoda in all this? Someone who taught you to navigate the ad world like a Jedi?
That's a good question. I have so many people that have influenced me. I'm sort of the product of lots of friends and mentors, there. But I think my biggest influence in advertising, I think, is probably a lady called Lucy Jameson, who was my boss at DDB, the ad agency in London, and then went on to found a company called Uncommon Studios, which has recently been bought by Havas she's become a multi-millionaire as a creative. She herself is a strategist. She works with creatives. What's brilliant about Lucy is that she's amazingly smart and erudite and takes her job extremely seriously. But she was always brilliant at explaining that just because we took things seriously didn't mean that anyone else took it seriously. You have to remember how insignificant advertising is. You have to remember how boring it is to most people. And that's what makes it such an interesting intellectual challenge. And in actual fact, it's exactly this that made me go into the attention space and maybe start thinking about it.
It's like a piece of advice you hear in your head, like Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, she just says, I can remember her just saying that people don't care. You care, but they don't. And that's the really important thing about advertising. That's why it's such an interesting intellectual challenge. If people cared about what we did, that we wouldn't have an industry because they would search out the information or find it themselves. It's because they don't care that we have a job. The challenge of advertising is to turn people who they are either confused or distracted or bored or don't care, and make them care just for an instant, to earn their attention for something that perhaps isn't they couldn't immediately see the value in. That's the challenge. That's why it's so interesting, though. It's the fact that other people find what we do so boring that we have such an interesting industry. That's why creativity is so. I mean, her company has produced the most astonishing advertising that people sit and watch on YouTube. They sit through ads on YouTube so that they can watch another ad because it's so beautiful and interesting. And Nils Leonard, the chief creative at Uncommon, is famous for being able to have a much higher standard of what counts as creative, because he starts by saying, why is this worth looking at? Why is this worth engaged with? It's a much more interesting question to start with. And of course, that's underpinned by Lucy's sort of mantra of why would anyone care? So I've learned most from Lucy Jameson than I have from anyone else, but she's just one of them.
Do you ever find yourself passing that wisdom to others and pretend that you came up with it?
I steal ideas all the time, mainly from my staff. Half the smart things I say were actually said by someone else in the company. I go,
you own their intellectual property anyways.
Yeah, perhaps. I'm like a magpie. I end up taking ideas from everyone. So a lot of my thinking's been influenced by Faris Jacob, if you really paid attention. I'd like to think that perhaps I've influenced his thinking as well, but a lot of the thinking that we've done has been usefully honed in arguments with Karen Nelson Field. I agree with Karen about almost everything, but not everything that she says. And actually, the sort of intellectual sparring with someone of that intellectual caliber has been really, really useful as well. So I haven't yet stolen any of Karen's ideas, but I know that her ideas has helped make my ideas better.
So what's the most annoying thing about the industry that you love to change? The thing that makes you want to throw your laptop out the window?
Well, one thing is the fact that we can be so self-serious about how important we are and our role in people's lives.
You don't think we're changing the world one at a...
No, I certainly won't. No. Short answer, no, I don't think that. I think we think that we're quite an important group of people, and I'm not entirely sure that we are. Or we're not important in the way we think we are. I mean, we're obviously very important for the workings of capitalism and the funding of the free press and things like that. And that is a valuable function to play in society, but I mean, it might be at a general level rather than a particular level. So taking ourselves very seriously, I think, annoys me. But not taking ourselves seriously enough, because this industry is worth $700 billion. Jeff Green of the trade desk was saying $700 billion.
And that's just Jeff Green alone.
Probably it's close enough. $700 billion is a lot of money, and yet a lot of that money is spent without much thought, without really understanding how advertising works, how attention works, how attention links to desired outcomes. Lots of people are talking to themselves, staying up late, writing PowerPoint presentations, presenting plans with a very limited idea of how this actually works. And we don't seem to be very good as an industry about learning anything. It's like, do you ever remember watching that film about the guy with sort of temporary amnesia? I sometimes think we are like that in this industry, that we wake up each day and we're...
Was that Robin Williams?
It wasn't Robin Williams. It was the guy who was in... It was a sort of B movie from the late 90s. The guy who was in LA Confidential afterwards in Australia. Guy Pearce. It's a really good movie as Memento.
And Carrie-Anne Moss from The Matrix.
Oh, Carrie-Anne Moss. Oh, she's an amazing actor. And in this movie,
I think she's British too, right?
Day. Is she? No. She's very sophisticated. So
maybe I just said she's very sophisticated. I was like, she looks British.
But this man wakes up fresh each day, doesn't know who he is and where he is. I sometimes think that digital advertising is just like that. We know tons about how advertising works.
She's half British. She's from Canada, it says.
Oh, even better. So that's the best of both worlds. You have sort of American openness and British teeth. Colonialism, yeah.
On a more positive note, what is something in the industry that actually makes you optimistic? Is there a trend, a person, or a company out there doing something that gives you hope that we're not doomed?
Yeah, there's tons of things. We're talking about if you apply the right signals, like attention and outcomes and things, then you get the right results. And companies like the Trade Desk allow you to align those two things, and I think they're going to have massive impacts on the beneficial to the world. I think you can also align. What I particularly like is when you can align your commercial outcomes to other outcomes as well. Amy Williams runs a company called Goodloop. Goodloop allow you to have a sort of triple bottom line to your advertising. You buy good media, it funds good journalism, it delivers good business results, and as an added extra, it's low carbon, and I think they even give a donation to charity part of it. Now that's a really cool model where you can do well by doing good, and that's the sort of thing that can only really happen in Adtech. That's the where you can combine data sets and you can align incentives like that. I find that very inspiring. I find Amy a very inspiring person, to be honest.
All right, last question I've been asking everyone. When have you grown the most in your life, and what caused that growth?
Starting a startup, starting a business with an idea, a radical idea, an idea that no one thought was serious, and then watching that grow to be now accepted as the way in which advertising will be, should be and will be transacted in the future. That journey is an amazing experience. Few people get to change the world, and I really think Lumen is changing the world. And you don't undergo that experience without growth. So Lumen is the biggest change in my life and where I've learned the most. But the part of that journey, that 10 years that we've got undergone, the bit where I've learned the most is when things were at their worst.
Right.
It's only through stress and it's only through worry, I think, that you learn anything at all. For me, perhaps other people are lucky and they can learn from their successes. I can almost only learn through my mistakes. And there have been times when we've taken the wrong course, where I, as CEO, have taken everyone in the company in the wrong direction. And then you think, hang on, we have to change our minds here. And that process of changing your mind is a an important intellectual exercise, but an even more important emotional exercise to know that you can change. Or that moment where you learn a new skill and you're conscious that you've grown because of that learning. I'm very, very lucky to have started this company and joined a team that has helped me learn and grow like that. I feel very privileged.
A massive thanks to Mike Follett for coming on and breaking down why most of us are getting it completely wrong when it comes to grabbing attention. Eye tracking, attention metrics. It's like the stuff you wish you knew before you threw millions at campaigns no one cared about. Mike, you're basically the ad industry's version of a truth serum, and we appreciate you for it. Now, on to the heroes behind the curtain. Troutman Amin LLP, because who doesn't need a legal team that's got your back when the ad world gets murky? And Origin Media TV, taking connected TV from A to wow faster than you can click skip ads. If you're not on board with them yet, you probably enjoy losing sleep. That's all for today. Stay bold, stay curious, and always know more than you did yesterday. Especially if you've been zoning out like your audience.